welcome, and find a comfortable place to rest. As the world outside grows quiet and the distractions of the day begin to fade, we invite you on a journey. It is not a journey across vast distances, but rather through the depths of time, through layers of history, faith, and secrets so profound they have been woven into the very stone of a city within a city. Our destination is the Vatican, a name that echoes with the solemnity of centuries, the whispered prayers of millions, and the quiet, unsettling weight of the unknown. From the outside, the Vatican presents a face of serene order, of divine authority stretching in an unbroken line for 2,000 years. Its rituals are precise, its art is magnificent, and its history is a grand tapestry displayed for all the world to see. But like any ancient tapestry, there are threads that have frayed, colors that have faded, and patterns that, when examined closely, suggest a different picture altogether. Behind the gilded ceilings and beneath the marble floors lie stories that are not often told in the light of day. These are the tales of vanished documents, of unmarked tombs, of prophecies that chill the blood, and of mysteries that have resisted the scrutiny of historians, scientists, and skeptics alike. For every public ceremony, there is a private intrigue. For every declared saint, there is a forgotten ghost. The Vatican is not merely a religious institution, it is a sovereign state, a repository of unimaginable wealth, and the custodian of an archive so vast that its full contents remain, even now, a subject of intense speculation. Within its labyrinthine libraries and sealed chambers, what truths lie hidden, what histories have been rewritten, and what voices have been silenced to preserve a narrative. Over the course of this exploration, we will delve into 10 of these terrifying mysteries. We will begin with shadows from the distant past, with the unsolved death of one of the Renaissance's most enigmatic figures, and journey through tales of forbidden knowledge, eerie prophecies, and spectral apparitions said to walk the hallowed halls. We will examine the strange case of a pope put on trial after his death, and the chilling predictions of a saint who foresaw the very end of the papacy itself. We will venture into the secret archives and the underground necropolis, where the pagan and the sacred intertwine, and where the air is said to be thick with the presence of ages. This is not a narrative designed to shock or to disparage, but rather to contemplate the immense and complex legacy of a place that has stood at the center of Western civilization for millennia. It is in the quiet hours of the night that the past feels most alive, when the boundary between history and mystery becomes thin, and the echoes of long-ago events seem to whisper just at the edge of hearing. So, allow your mind to relax and your imagination to open. Let the sounds of the present drift away, and prepare to step into the silence and the stone. The history of the Vatican is waiting, and its deepest horrors and most fascinating secrets are ready to be unveiled, one by one, as you drift into a state of deep and restful sleep. Our first mystery takes us back to the twilight of the 15th century, a time of immense political intrigue, soaring artistic achievement, and dark familial ambition within the church itself. It is a story centered on a name that would become synonymous with corruption and nepotism, the Borgias, and at the heart of this mystery is a death that was as sudden as it was convenient, giving rise to whispers of poison that have echoed for over 500 years. The central figure is Alfonso Cardinal de Borgia, a young man of immense privilege and prospect. He was the nephew of the most powerful man in Christendom, Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia. Alexander was a pontiff of formidable will and worldly appetite, a man who used the papacy not just as a spiritual office but as a dynastic weapon, placing his children in positions of tremendous power across Italy. His son, Cesare Borgia, was a military commander whose ruthlessness was legendary. His daughter, Lucretia Borgia, was a political pawn whose name would later be darkened by rumors of incest and poison. Into this web of power, Alfonso was thrust as a cardinal, a clear stepping stone to even greater influence, perhaps even the papacy itself. In the year 1500, however, Alfonso's bright future was abruptly extinguished. The official accounts were vague, speaking of a sudden illness that took the young cardinal in the prime of his life. But in the corridors of the Vatican and the bustling piazzas of Rome, a different story began to circulate. The rumor was that Alfonso de Borgia had been murdered, and the method was a poison so refined and subtle that it left no obvious trace. The motive, according to the whispers, was a dangerous liaison, a love affair that threatened to destabilize the intricate political machinations of his uncle, the Pope. The object of Alfonso's affection was said to be his own cousin, Lucretia Borgia, While historical evidence for a romantic relationship is ambiguous, the perception at the time was enough to create a potent scandal. A union between the Pope's nephew and his daughter would have concentrated too much power, attracted too much criticism from rival families like the Orsini and the Colonna, and potentially created a rival faction within the Borgia clan itself. For Pope Alexander VI, who ruled with an iron fist, such a veritable was unacceptable. The stability of his reign, built on a precarious balance of fear and favor, could not be jeopardized by the passions of a young cardinal. But the mystery deepens when we consider the alleged instrument of the crime. Cantarella. This was the name given to the Borgia family's legendary poison, a substance whose exact composition remains unknown to this day. It was said to be a white powder, perhaps derived from arsenic, which could be administered in small, cumulative doses to mimic a slow decline, or in a single, lethal measure to simulate a sudden fever or a seizure. The genius of Cantarella, according to law, was its ability to confound the physicians of the era, leaving them to diagnose a natural death from a mysterious malady. The Borgias were rumored to possess a special key, its tip hollowed out to hold the fatal powder, which they would use to secretly dose the wine of their enemies during sumptuous banquets within the Vatican walls. Did such a key truly exist? Was Cantarella a real chemical compound, or merely a powerful metaphor for the family's treacherous nature? The evidence is, and likely always will be, circumstantial. The Borgias had many enemies who were all too eager to propagate the most salacious stories about them. Yet, the persistence of the legend is telling. The death of Alfonso Cardinal de Borgia fits a pattern of convenient demises that cleared the path for the ambitions of Alexander, Cesare, and Lucretia. The true horror of this mystery lies not in the potential act of murder, a common enough occurrence in Renaissance politics, but in its setting. This was not a crime committed in a dark alley, but within the sacred precincts of the Vatican, the heart of the Catholic world. It suggests a world where spiritual authority and temporal power were locked in a deadly embrace, where the body of Christ could be administered in one moment and a vial of poison in the next. The tomb of Alfonso de Borgia, like so many others in the Vatican grottos, holds more than just bones. It holds the echo of a question, a silent testament to a death that served the cold, calculating needs of power, leaving a stain on the legacy of the papacy that no amount of time has been able to completely erase. It is a chilling reminder that the most terrifying horrors are often not supernatural, but profoundly, devastatingly human. If the story of the Borgias reveals the corruption that festered within the Vatican's living heart, our next mystery descends into a realm of such profound and bizarre vengeance that it seems to defy all reason and sanctity. It is an event unique in the history of the Catholic Church, an episode so grotesque that its echoes still carry a chill of madness and sacrilege. This is the tale of the Cadaver Synod, the trial of a dead pope. Our story begins not with a death, but with a reign. Pope Formosus was a complex and ambitious figure who became pontiff in 891 AD. His papacy was embroiled in the turbulent politics of Italy and the Holy Roman Empire, and his efforts to navigate these treacherous waters earned him powerful enemies. Chief among them was a powerful Roman family, the House of Spalato, and a particular nobleman who would later become Pope Stephen VI. Formosus's decisions, particularly his crowning of a rival emperor, were seen by his opponents as acts of betrayal. When Formosus died in 896 AD, he was buried with the customary rites of a pope. His body was interred in the ancient St. Peter's Basilica, and it seemed his soul and his legacy were at rest. But the political winds shifted violently. The Spalaton faction regained control of Rome, and Stephen VI, Formosus's bitter enemy, ascended to the papal throne. What happened next was an act of vengeance so unprecedented it shocked even the hardened sensibilities of the Dark Ages. Pope Stephen VI, consumed by hatred and a desire to utterly annihilate the memory and works of his predecessor, ordered a macabre and unholy spectacle. He commanded that the corpse of Formosus be exhumed from its tomb. The body, which had been decaying for nearly 9 months, was dug up, dressed in its full papal vestments, and propped up on a throne in the great hall of the Lateran Palace. A synod, a formal ecclesiastical trial, was then convened, with the decaying corpse of Formosus as the defendant. The scene must have been one of surreal horror. The cadaver, robed in silks and satins, was placed before a tribunal of bishops and cardinals, presided over by the living Pope Stephen. A deacon was appointed to stand beside the corpse and speak for it, answering the charges leveled against it. The charges were grave: that Formosus had illegally sought the papacy, that he had perjured himself, and that he had held the office of Bishop of Rome while previously being the Bishop of Porto, a violation of church law at the time. Throughout the grotesque proceedings, the corpse sat in silent, putrid judgment of its own accusers. The deacon, speaking in a hollow defense, could do little against the will of Stephen VI. Unsurprisingly, the court found the dead pope guilty on all counts. The sentence was as brutal as the trial was absurd. All of Formosus's acts and ordinations as pope were declared null and void. The 3 fingers of his right hand, the fingers used to confer blessings, were chopped off. The papal vestments were torn from the decaying body, which was then dragged through the streets of Rome by a furious mob before being thrown into the Tiber River. Yet, the horror did not end there. The insanity of the cadaver synod provoked a powerful backlash. The Roman populace, and many within the clergy, were revolted by Stephen's actions. Within months, he was deposed, imprisoned, and strangled to death in his cell. A subsequent pope, Theodore II, managed to recover Formosus's body from the river and give it a proper Christian burial, declaring the trial null and void. But the cycle of vengeance continued. Later, popes reinstated the nullifications, only to have their own decrees overturned by their successors. The period became known as the Rule of the Cadaver, a time when the papacy was haunted by the corpse it had put on trial. The terror of this mystery is not one of ghosts or poisons, but of institutional madness. It reveals a moment when the very seat of spiritual authority was consumed by a hatred so profound that it violated the most fundamental taboos regarding death and sanctity. The image of a pope, rotten and mute, being judged by his successor, is a powerful symbol of how far the Church could fall into the abyss of worldly passion. It stands as a permanent, chilling reminder that the walls of the Vatican have witnessed not only divine aspiration, but also a darkness so deep it would put a corpse on trial for its crimes. From the grotesque physicality of a decaying corpse, we now turn to a mystery of the spirit, of visions that reach across centuries. This is the enigma of the Prophecia Sancti Malachia, the prophecy of Saint Malachia, a document that claims to predict the destiny of every pope from the 12th century until the end of the world itself. It is a mystery that blends medieval piety with apocalyptic dread, and its implications have haunted the conclaves of cardinals for hundreds of years. The prophecy is attributed to Saint Malachi O'Magar, a 12th century Archbishop of Armagh in Ireland. According to tradition, during a pilgrimage to Rome in 1139, Malachi was granted a visuna, long sequence of cryptic Latin phrases, each one corresponding to a future pope. He recorded these 112 phrases and presented the manuscript to Pope Innocent II, who deposited it in the Vatican archives, where it lay forgotten for nearly 400 years. It was only rediscovered and published in 1595 by a Benedictine monk, and ever since, its authenticity and accuracy have been the subject of intense debate, fascination, and fear. Each phrase in the prophecy is not a name, but a matter short, often enigmatic description that is said to symbolize a pontiff's family name, his coat of arms, his birthplace, or a significant event during his reign. For example, the motto for Pope Urban VIII was Lilium et Rosa, the lily and the rose. Urban was from Florence, a city whose symbol is the fleur-de-lis, a lily, and he was also a cardinal bishop of the See of Porto, which features roses on its coat of arms. The correspondences for many of the historical popes are startlingly precise, but the true chilling weight of the prophecy lies in its final entries. The last few mottos become increasingly dark and apocalyptic. The second-to-last pope is described as Gloria Olivae, the glory of the olive. The order of Saint Benedict has traditionally been associated with the olive branch, a symbol of peace, leading to speculation that this pope would be a Benedictine or a pontiff who seeks peace but whose reign would be marked by turmoil. It is the final phrase, however, that has cast the longest shadow over the modern papacy. The 112th and last pope in the prophecy is given the motto Petros Romanus Peter, the Roman. The prophecy attached to this final pope is dire and unambiguous. It states, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people." The end. This has led to a terrifying interpretation that the reign of Petrus Romanus will signal the end of the papacy and the destruction of Rome itself. Every time a new pope is elected, scholars and conspiracy theorists alike scour the prophecy to see if he fits the description of Gloria Olivae, or, more ominously, if he could be the final Peter the Roman. The election of Pope Benedict XVI, whose connection to the Benedictine order seemed to fit Gloria Olivae perfectly, caused a wave of speculation. Then, with the shocking resignation of Benedict XVI, an event almost unheard of in modern times, and the election of Pope Francis, a new wave of analysis began. Could Francis, a pope from the Americas, be Petrus Romanus? Some argue that his name, Francis, references Saint Francis of Assisi, who preached a vision of a simple, poor church, and that his role is to oversee its final trial. Others see the destruction not as literal, but spiritual. The horror of the prophecy of Saint Malachi is the horror of predestination, of a future written in stone centuries ago. It raises a terrifying question. Are the men elected to the chair of St. Peter merely actors playing out a script composed by a mystic in the Middle Ages? Is the highest office in the Catholic Church moving inexorably towards a predetermined and catastrophic conclusion? Whether one views it as a genuine divine revelation, a clever forgery, or simply a series of remarkable coincidences, the prophecy has inserted itself into the very fabric of papal history. It is a whisper of doom in the Sistine Chapel during every conclave, a reminder that the keys to the kingdom may also unlock a final, terrible door. The silence of the archives, where the manuscript was said to have rested, seems to hold not just dust, but the weight of an impending judgment. Leaving behind the grand sweep of prophecy, we now descend into a more intimate, personal horror tragedy so fresh in the collective memory of the Vatican that its ghost is said to still walk the midnight corridors. This is the story of the ghost of the Swiss Guard, a tale of loyalty, love, and a death that has become a permanent part of the Vatican's shadow lore. The Swiss Guard, with their striking Renaissance uniforms of blue, red, and yellow, are far more than ceremonial sentinels. They are a highly trained, modern security force, sworn to protect the person of the Pope with their lives. Their oath is one of absolute fidelity, a promise that binds them not only to duty, but to the very walls they patrol. It is within these walls, in the summer of 1998, that a drama unfolded which would end in bloodshed and give birth to a legend. The central figures were the commander of the guard at the time, Colonel Alois, his wife, Gladys Meza Romero, and a young guardsman, Corporal Cedric Tor. Colonel Esteman was a respected and devout man, a career soldier who had risen to the highest rank within the guard. He had recently been passed over for a prestigious award, the Pro Ecclesia et Pontifex Medal, an omission that some suggested had caused him considerable personal distress. His wife, Gladys, was a vibrant woman, known for her strong personality. Corporal Cedric Tournay was a 23-year-old Swiss citizen, described by some as a dedicated and capable soldier, but by others as sensitive and struggling with what he perceived as unfair treatment from his superiors. He, too, had been disappointed. He had been denied a medal for exemplary service, a decision he reportedly felt was deeply unjust. On the evening of May 4, 1998, Tournay requested a meeting with Colonel Esteman at the Commander's private apartment within the Vatican City walls. What happened next remains the subject of official investigation and endless speculation. The official Vatican inquiry concluded that, at approximately 8:30 p.m., Cedric Tournay entered the Esteman apartment and, in a fit of rage over the denied medal and alleged reprimands, shot and killed Colonel Esteman and his wife Gladys with his service pistol. He then turned the weapon on himself, committing suicide. The scene discovered by other guards was one of utter horror. 3 bodies in a small apartment, the silence of the Holy City shattered by an act of shocking violence. The Vatican's explanation of a murder-suicide motivated by personal grievance was accepted by Swiss authorities, but has never fully quelled the whispers. Almost immediately, alternative theories emerged. Some suggested a darker conspiracy, perhaps involving secrets the commander had uncovered. Others wondered about the possibility of a struggle, a love triangle, or even a political assassination disguised as a personal tragedy. The precise sequence of events, the positioning of the bodies, and the psychological portrait of Tournay were picked apart by journalists and authors, each finding inconsistencies that fueled doubt. But from this unresolved tragedy, a ghost story was born. Soon after the deaths, members of the Swiss Guard began reporting eerie phenomena while on their night watches. The most common account involves the sound of frantic, echoing footsteps in the otherwise empty hall of the Swiss, the very corridor leading to the old apartment. The footsteps are said to be quick and agitated, as if someone is running in a state of extreme panic or pursuit. Sometimes, these spectral steps are accompanied by a low, guttural sobbing. On rare occasions, a pale, transparent figure in the uniform of a guardsman is seen, his face contorted in anguish, before he vanishes into the stone walls. This apparition is almost always identified as the tormented spirit of Cedric Tournay. The story goes that his soul, burdened by the guilt of his terrible act or raging against the injustice of the official narrative, cannot find peace. He is condemned to eternally patrol the scene of his crime, replaying that fatal night over and over again in the silent heart of the Vatican. The horror of this mystery is its modernity and its intimacy. It is not a tale of Renaissance poison or medieval sacrilege, but a 20th century tragedy that highlights the immense psychological pressure and human drama that exists behind the Vatican's serene facade. The ghost of the Swiss Guard is a reminder that these ancient walls are not just a museum or a fortress, they are also a home to the men and women who live within them, and sometimes the passions and despairs of the human heart can leave a stain that not even time can wash away. The sound of those phantom footsteps is a chilling testament to a truth that refuses to be buried, a story that continues to walk the halls, seeking an understanding that may never come. We have encountered ghosts of men and prophecies of doom, but now we venture into a repository of secrets so vast that its very existence has fueled the imaginations of conspiracy theorists and historians for centuries. This is the mystery of the Vatican's secret archives, a place whose name alone conjures images of forbidden knowledge, suppressed histories, and truths that could shake the foundations of faith itself. The horror here is not of a spectre, but of silence, the silence of billions of documents, the vast majority of which remain unseen by public eyes. The name Secret Archives is, in itself, a source of misunderstanding. The Latin root of secret here is secretum, meaning private or personal. These are the private archives of the Holy See, the personal correspondence and state documents of the popes throughout history. They are not, as popular lore would have it, a single hidden room filled with heretical texts, but a colossal complex spanning over 85 kilometers of shelving, housed in a fortified bunker beneath the Vatican. It is a city of paper, a labyrinth of history. Access to the archives is notoriously restricted. Only qualified scholars with impeccable credentials may apply, and even then, they are granted access only to specific documents they can justify needing for their research. The vast ocean of material, dating back over 1,000 years, remains classified. Released to the public only after a period of 75 years have passed since the end of a pontificate. This policy of secrecy, while intended to protect diplomatic and personal privacy, is the fertile ground in which dark legends grow. What, the world wonders, lies in the documents that are kept from view. The theories are as numerous as they are sensational. Some speculate that the archives hold proof of extraterrestrial contact, or detailed maps of ancient, advanced civilizations like Atlantis. Others whisper of alchemical texts containing the secret to transmuting base metals into gold, or to achieving immortality. But the most persistent and chilling theories concern the very history of Christianity itself. Could the archives contain Gospels that were excluded from the New Testament? Texts that present a radically different picture of Jesus Christ and his teachings? The discovery of the Nag Hammadi library in Egypt, containing Gnostic Gospels, proved that alternative Christianities existed. It is logical to assume the Vatican, in its long history of defining orthodoxy, came into possession of many such documents. Do they hold the Gospel of Judas, which portrays the betrayer as Christ's most trusted confidant, or other texts that challenge the very narrative of the resurrection? Perhaps the archives contain detailed records of the Church's most controversial actions, the full unedited transcripts of the Inquisition's trials, revealing the extent of the torture and persecution, the true financial and political dealings during the Crusades, or documents pertaining to the Church's relationship with fascist regimes during the 20th century. The potential for historical bombshells is immense. One of the most tantalizing legends is that of the Occulte Historia, a supposed secret history of the world written by a succession of learned popes and cardinals. This history is said to document the existence of a dark supernatural undercurrent flowing beneath human events, a struggle against forces that are not of this world, a truth so terrifying that it must be kept hidden from humanity for its own good. The true terror of the secret archives is the power of the unknown. It is the anxiety of what might be hidden. Every document that is released to scholars is scrutinized for clues, for hints of what else might lie in the darkness. Is the Vatican the guardian of a faith, protecting it from information that would mislead the faithful? Or is it a custodian of inconvenient truths, maintaining its authority by controlling the narrative of history? The silence of those 85 kilometers of shelves is a profound one. It is a silence that speaks of countless stories untold, of secrets that have been buried, not in earth, but in ink and vellum. It is a reminder that the greatest mysteries are not always about what is seen, but about what is deliberately and permanently kept from sight. The archives represent a horror of knowledge withheld, a chilling testament to the idea that some truths are considered too dangerous to ever see the light of day. From the silent, paper-bound secrets of the archives, we now descend into the earth itself, into a realm of dust, bones, and ancient shadows. This is the mystery of the Scavi, the archaeological excavation beneath St. Peter's Basilica, a multi-layered necropolis that is arguably the most sacred and archaeologically sensitive site in the entire Vatican. Here, the horror is not one of violence or conspiracy, but of profound antiquity and a search for a presence that has defined the Western world for 2 millennia. The story begins not with the construction of the magnificent Renaissance basilica, but with its destruction. In the early 16th century, Pope Julius II made the fateful decision to tear down the old, crumbling Constantinian basilica, which had stood for over 1,000 years, and build a new, grander church in its place. As the foundations were dug for Bramante, Michelangelo, and Bernini's masterpiece, workers broke through into a world long forgotten, a Roman necropolis, a city of the dead. This ancient cemetery, dating from the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, had been buried for centuries, deliberately filled with earth by Emperor Constantine in the 4th century to create a level foundation for the first great basilica dedicated to St. Peter. For centuries, this underground city slumbered in darkness, its existence only hinted at. It was not until the 20th century, during the reign of Pope Pius XII, that a formal and secret archaeological excavation was authorized. The mission was driven by one overwhelming question: was there any truth to the ancient and enduring tradition that the Basilica of St. Peter was built directly over the tomb of the Apostle Peter himself? According to tradition, Peter was crucified upside down in Nero's circus, which stood adjacent to the Vatican Hill and buried in a nearby cemetery. Had Constantine truly built his church on what he believed was the final resting place of the Prince of the Apostles? The excavations, carried out with painstaking care in the cramped, earth-filled darkness, revealed a stunning sight. They uncovered a complex of Roman mausoleums, beautifully preserved, with frescoes, mosaics, and inscriptions dedicated to pagan gods and wealthy Roman families. It was a snapshot of pre-Christian Rome, frozen in time. The archaeologists followed an ancient path of pilgrimage, a line of graves and memorials that seemed to lead toward a specific, venerated spot. And there, at the very center, directly beneath the high altar of the great basilica above, they found what they were looking for. It was a simple, humble patch of earth, surrounded by a small, red-plastered wall from the 2nd century. This enclosure, which the excavators called Trophy of Gaius, after a 2nd century Christian writer who referred to it, was clearly a site of veneration from the earliest times. Above it, later Constantine had built a marble and porphyry shrine, and in the earth near this spot, but not directly within the trophy itself, the archaeologists made another discovery, a collection of bones. The initial analysis was puzzling. The bones were from several individuals and included animal bones. But upon further, meticulous examination, a Vatican physician declared that one set of bones, belonging to a robust man in his 60s or 70s from the 1st century, showed no signs of having been buried in the earth for long. They were, he concluded, bones that had been moved from an original burial place and wrapped in a precious purple cloth embroidered with gold thread, the remnants of which were found clinging to the fragments. Most compellingly, these bones were missing their feet. The significance of that detail was electrifying. According to tradition, when Peter was crucified upside down, his executioners would have likely chopped him down from the cross by severing his feet to remove the body more easily. The absence of the feet while not conclusive proof, was a powerful correlation with the ancient story. Pope Paul VI would eventually announce that the relics of St. Peter had been identified in a way which we believe convincing. But the Vatican has never officially declared the discovery with absolute, dogmatic certainty. The evidence remains archaeological and historical, not theological. The tomb, visible today from a small grate deep in the Scavi, is a place of overwhelming atmosphere. It feels ancient, silent, and heavy with meaning. The horror, or perhaps the awe, of this mystery is the confrontation with the literal bedrock of faith. It is the realization that the most magnificent church in Christendom is built upon a pagan graveyard, and that its central claim rests on a collection of bones in the earth. The Scavi is a place of profound duality, the pagan and the Christian, the historical and the faithful, the glorious basilica above, and the dark, simple tomb below. To walk its narrow passages is to walk through layers of time, and to stand before that small, red wall is to stand at the edge of a mystery that has shaped history. Are these the bones of a humble fisherman who changed the world? The silence of the necropolis offers no definitive answer, only a question that echoes through the centuries. Emerging from the ancient dust of the necropolis, we are thrust abruptly into the modern era, into a scandal that ripped open the serene facade of the Vatican at the start of the 21st century. This is not a mystery of ghosts or prophecies, but one of raw contemporary power struggles, betrayal, and a poison that flows not from a vial, but from a printer. The Vatileaks scandal revealed a Vatican gripped by internal civil war, where the most dangerous secrets were not buried in archives, but leaked through emails and documents. The central figure in this drama was Pope Benedict XVI, a theologian and scholar suddenly tasked with governing the notoriously complex and often dysfunctional Vatican bureaucracy, the Roman Curia. Benedict, by nature a reserved and gentle man, found himself battling powerful factions within his own court. There were clashes over Vatican finances, over the direction of the Church, and over the influence of certain cardinals. The atmosphere behind the Apostolic Palace's walls became thick with intrigue, suspicion, and hostility. The scandal broke in early 2012 when an Italian journalist, Gianluigi Nuzzi, began publishing a series of explosive books and television programs based on a massive trove of confidential Vatican documents. The leaks were breathtaking in their scope and sensitivity. They included private letters between the Pope and his personal secretary, confidential, memos from cardinals warning of corruption and mismanagement, and detailed financial records that suggested cronyism and murky dealings. Within the Vatican Bank, known as the Institute for Religious Works, IOR, the documents painted a picture of an institution in chaos. One memo written by the former second-in-command of the Vatican government, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, pleaded with the Pope not to transfer him from his post, warning that without his oversight, corruption would run rampant and cost the Holy See millions. His transfer went ahead, and his memos were later leaked, seemingly to prove his point. The leaks revealed a world of petty jealousies, power grabs, and a deep-seated resistance to transparency. But who was behind the leak? The investigation led the Vatican Gendarmerie to a surprising source. The Pope's own butler, Paolo Gabriele, a quiet, unassuming man who had served Benedict XVI with devotion, was arrested after boxes of confidential documents were found in his apartment. His motive, he claimed, was not malice, but a desperate attempt to save the Pope he loved from evil and corruption all around him. He saw himself as a whistleblower, a lone voice trying to cleanse the Church from within. The trial of the Pope's butler was a spectacle that humiliated the Vatican. Yet, many observers believed Gabriele was a pawn, a fall guy for much more powerful figures within the Curia, who were waging a secret war against the Pope's reforms. The sheer volume and sensitivity of the documents suggested Gabriele could not have acted alone. Was he part of a wider conspiracy? Was he being manipulated by a cardinal or a faction that sought to weaken Benedict's authority? The true poison of the Vatileaks affair was the revelation of profound spiritual sickness. This was not a physical poison, but a venom of disloyalty and ambition that had infected the heart of the Church's governance. The scandal exposed a Vatican where trust was dead, where aides spied on their superiors, and where the mission of the Church was being sabotaged by internal power struggles. It was a horror of modernity, the ancient institution brought low not by external enemies, but by the click of a send button and the whir of a photocopier. The aftermath was profound. A weary and disheartened Pope Benedict XVI seemingly overwhelmed by the wolves within his own household, did something almost unheard of in modern times. He resigned the papacy. While he cited advanced age and failing strength, many saw the Vatican scandal and the intractable corruption it revealed as a primary reason for his shocking decision. The mystery that remains is one of unfinished business. Who were the true architects of the leak? What other secrets remain hidden on forgotten hard drives? The Vatican scandal proved that the most terrifying horrors are not always supernatural. Sometimes they are the all-too-human horrors of betrayal, cynicism, and a battle for the soul of an institution, fought with memos and metadata, leaving a pontiff broken and a church forever scarred by the revelation of its own internal rot. From the earthly intrigues of power and corruption, we now cast our gaze upward, toward the stars. It may seem a surprising pivot, but within the Vatican lies a mystery that bridges the gap between faith and reason, between the Word of God and the mechanics of the cosmos. This is the enigma of the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope and the centuries-old mission of the Vatican Observatory. The subtle horror here is not one of ghosts or conspiracies, but of a knowledge so vast and humbling that it threatens to dwarf the very doctrines it seeks to illuminate. The Vatican's interest in astronomy is long-standing. The Gregorian calendar, now used across most of the world, was a product of Vatican-sponsored astronomical reform in the 16th century, but the modern observatory has a more specific and poignant origin. It was re-established in the late 19th century by Pope Leo XIII, partly to counter the perception that the Catholic Church was opposed to science. This was a direct response to the lingering shadow of the Galileo affair, the Church's most famous and damaging conflict with scientific discovery. The new observatory was to be a symbol, a statement that the Church could both embrace scientific inquiry and remain faithful. The observatory's main facility today is not in Rome, where light pollution obscures the heavens, but atop Mount Graham in Arizona, USA. The choice of this location, however, sparked a different kind of controversy, one tinged with the aura of ancient taboo. Mount Graham is a sacred site for the Apache people, and the construction of the telescope was seen as a desecration. This conflict between the pursuit of cosmic knowledge and the respect for indigenous spiritual traditions added a layer of moral complexity to the Observatory's mission, a reminder that the quest to understand the universe is never free from earthly disputes. But the core mystery, the one that whispers from the silent, air-conditioned control rooms of the telescope, is this: what is the Vatican truly looking for? The official mission is pure scientific research, studying stellar evolution, asteroid tracking, and cosmology. The Jesuit priests, who are often the astronomers here, are brilliant scientists. Their work respected by secular institutions worldwide. They see their work as reading the book of nature, a companion to the book of scripture, both revealing the glory of God's creation. Yet, the nature of their research inevitably leads to profound, and for some, profoundly unsettling, questions. By peering into the depths of space and time, they are studying the origins of the universe itself, the Big Bang. What happens if their data leads to a conclusion that challenges the theological understanding of creation? They are also at the forefront of the search for extrasolar planets. What if they one day find incontrovertible evidence of life, or even intelligence, on another world? How would such a discovery impact a faith tradition centered on God's relationship with humanity on Earth? This is the quiet horror that the Vatican Observatory contains. It is a place where the Church is actively, deliberately, funding research that has the potential to fundamentally undermine its own doctrines. The Jesuit astronomers are walking a razor's edge, exploring the ultimate frontiers of knowledge with the full support of the institution that once persecuted Galileo for doing the same. It is a brave, or perhaps terrifying, embrace of a potential paradox. Conspiracy theories, of course, flourish in this fertile ground. Some suggest the observatory's true purpose is not to find life, but to watch for threats, to monitor near-Earth objects that could cause extinction, or even to scan for signs of extraterrestrial visitation, knowledge the Church would supposedly suppress to protect the faith. Others see a more profound agenda, that the Vatican, with its long memory, is using advanced astrophysics to search for physical evidence of the divine, for a fingerprint of the Creator in the cosmic microwave background radiation. The true enigma of the Vatican Observatory is the tension it represents. It is a monument to the Church's struggle to reconcile its ancient beliefs with the relentless advance of science. The silent turning dome of the telescope on Mount Graham is not just observing stars, It is gazing into a future of unknowable theological consequence. It embodies a chilling question. What if the ultimate truth revealed by science is one that faith cannot incorporate? The observatory stands as a brave gamble, a testament to the belief that all truth is God's truth. But in the vast, impersonal silence of the cosmos, that faith is being tested in a way more dramatic than any heresy trial. The horror is the possibility of a silent answer from the stars, an answer that could change everything. We have journeyed through poison, through ghosts, through archives and ancient tombs. We have witnessed modern scandals and gazed into the cosmos. Now, we arrive at the culmination of our exploration, the mystery that many believe ties all others together, pointing toward a final, apocalyptic climax for the Church and the world. This is the enigma of the third secret of Fatima, a prophecy delivered by the Virgin Mary to 3 peasant children in Portugal in 1917, a secret so terrifying that the Vatican waited decades to reveal it. And even then, its full meaning remains shrouded in doubt and fear. The story of Fatima is well known. In a series of apparitions, the Virgin Mary appeared to Lucia dos Santos and her cousins, Francisco and Jacinta Marto. She confided to them 3 secrets. The first 2 were revealed relatively soon: a vision of hell and a prediction of the end of World War I and the coming of World War II, along with a specific request for the consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart. The third secret, however, was written down by Lucia in 1944 and placed in a sealed envelope, with instructions that it was not to be opened until 1960. The year 1960 came and went. The Vatican remained silent. The world waited, and speculations spiraled into frenzy. Why the delay? The silence itself became the loudest part of the mystery. Was the secret so horrifying that the Church feared causing global panic? Did it predict a nuclear war, the assassination of a pope, or the collapse of the Catholic faith? For decades, the unopened envelope festered in the Vatican's possession, a ticking time bomb of divine revelation. Finally, in the year 2000, during the pontificate of John Paul II, the Vatican released an official text of the third secret. The text described a vision witnessed by the children, a bishop dressed in white who struggles up a steep mountain, past the ruins of a city, and kneels before a large cross. There, he is killed by a group of soldiers who fire bullets and arrows at him. Other bishops, priests, and lay people are killed alongside him. The interpretation offered by the Vatican, led by Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, the future Pope Benedict XVI, was that this was a prophetic vision of the 20th century's sufferings, the persecution of the Church, the martyrs of totalitarian regimes, and specifically the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II in 1981, which occurred on the anniversary of the first Fatima apparition. For the Vatican, the case was closed. The prophecy had been fulfilled. But for many believers, scholars, and conspiracy theorists, the official explanation was unsatisfying, a sanitized version of a much darker truth. The objections were numerous. Why wait until 2000 if the secret merely referred to an event in 1981? Why the initial fear and hesitation? The released text, they argued, was too vague, too symbolic, and lacked the specific, chilling detail that would warrant such extreme secrecy for over half a century. This has given rise to the persistent belief that the Vatican has not revealed the full third secret. The theory posits that the vision released in 2000 was only a part of the secret, and that the envelope contained an accompanying text, a written explanation by Sister Lucia that spelled out the vision's meaning in terrifyingly clear language. This purported real secret is said to describe a great apostasy within the Catholic Church itself. Catastrophic loss of faith, starting from the highest levels of the hierarchy. It is whispered to predict a false council that would change doctrine, a corrupt clergy that leads the faithful astray, and the rise of a false pope who presides over the ruin of the Church. In this interpretation, the bishop dressed in white is not just a pope who is physically killed, but a pope whose papacy is martyred by the corruption and betrayal from within his own house. The horror of the third secret of Fatima, in its unrevealed form, is the ultimate horror for a Catholic, the fear that the very foundation of their faith, the Rock of Peter, could crumble from the inside. It is a prophecy that seems to connect the dots between all our previous mysteries. The corruption of the Borgias, the sacrilege of the Cadaver Synod, the internal wars of Vatileaks, and the apocalyptic end of the prophecy of the popes. It suggests that the greatest threat to the Church is not external persecution, but internal decay. Is the secret of Fatima a divine warning of a trial yet to come? Or was it indeed fulfilled in the tragedies of the 20th century? As the Vatican insists, the mystery endures because it taps into a deep, primal anxiety about the future and the fragility of institutions we believe to be eternal. The silence from Fatima, whether broken or merely punctuated, continues to whisper of a crisis of faith, a test that may still lie ahead. It is a mystery that does not offer a clear ghost or a tangible document, but rather a shadow that falls across the entire modern papacy, a question mark hanging over the very future of the ancient institution we have spent these hours exploring. It is the final, and perhaps most terrifying, of the Vatican's hidden horrors. We have reached the end of our journey through the hidden corridors and veiled histories of the Vatican. We have stood witness to tales of earthly poison and spiritual betrayal, of prophecies whispered from heaven and secrets buried deep in the earth. From the grotesque trial of a dead pope to the silent, star-filled gaze of a modern telescope, we have traversed centuries of faith, power, and mystery. The 10 terrors we have unveiled are but echoes in the vast cavern of the Vatican's history, each one a reflection of the human drama played out under the immense weight of divine expectation. What, then, are we to make of these echoes? Do they reveal an institution rotten to its core, a bastion of hypocrisy built upon a foundation of lies and blood? Or do they instead illuminate the profound and perpetual struggle of a divine institution inhabited by fallible human beings? The Vatican is not a museum of saints, but a living city, and like any ancient city, its foundations are layered with the rubble of its past, both glorious and grim. The horrors we have explored are not necessarily proof of a malevolent force at work, but rather testament to the immense, often crushing, burden of carrying a 2,000-year legacy. The thirst for power, the fear of truth, the desperation to maintain order, and the awe-inspiring search for meaning, these are the human impulses that have shaped this holy city as much as any prayer or scripture. The true mystery of the Vatican may not lie in any single unsolved death or suppressed document. It may reside in the enduring paradox it represents, a beacon of eternal truths governed by transient men, a fortress of faith that has both inspired the greatest art and sanctioned the greatest horrors, a place where the silence is filled with both the peace of profound prayer and the whispers of countless secrets. It is a mirror held up to humanity itself, reflecting our highest aspirations and our deepest flaws. As the night deepens and your mind begins to drift into rest, let these stories settle, not as sources of fear, but as facets of a grand, complex, and endlessly fascinating history. The Vatican stands, as it has for millennia, a city of light and shadow. Its walls have absorbed the prayers of pilgrims and the intrigues of princes. They have witnessed miracles and massacres, and they will, undoubtedly, continue to guard their mysteries, inviting future generations to listen closely to the echoes in the silence, and to wonder. The story is never truly over, for within those sacred walls, history is not just a record of the past. It is a living, breathing presence, and its final chapter has yet to be written. Rest now, and may your dreams be filled with the intriguing shadows of a history that is, perhaps, stranger than any fiction. Our journey through the silent halls of the Vatican's hidden history has reached its intended conclusion. Yet the nature of such a vast and ancient institution is that its mysteries are inexhaustible. The 10 terrors we have explored are but the most prominent landmarks on a map of shadows. But between those landmarks lie lesser-known paths, tales that are whispered rather than proclaimed, horrors that are felt more than seen. As you settle deeper into rest, allow these final whispers to drift through your consciousness, not as a new chapter, but as a lingering echo of the world we have just traversed. Consider, for a moment, the art that adorns every surface, the magnificent frescoes of the Raphael rooms, the serene beauty of the Sistine Chapel ceiling. These are testaments to divine inspiration. But look closer. Some art historians whisper at the darker elements Michelangelo and others incorporated, the grotesques and demons that lurk in the corners of otherwise holy scenes. Were these merely artistic flourishes, or did these masters, privy to the inner circles of papal power, embed subtle criticisms and esoteric warnings into their work? Is there a hidden language in the paint and plaster, a silent testimony to the tensions between artistic genius and ecclesiastical authority? And what of the very ground upon which the Vatican is built? We spoke of the necropolis of St. Peter, but the entire area of the Borgo and the Vatican Hill is a honeycomb of forgotten passages, sealed catacombs, and ancient Roman structures. There are stories, never confirmed, of excavations that uncovered things that were quickly walled up against pagan altars of a particularly dark nature, or ossuaries filled with bones arranged in unnatural patterns. The ground of Rome is a palimpsest, and the Vatican-esque portion of it may hold layers of history deemed too disturbing or theologically inconvenient to ever see the light of day. Even the daily life of the Vatican city-state holds its peculiarities. The Swiss Guard, for all their discipline, have their own oral tradition stories of night shifts where the scent of incense suddenly fills a deserted corridor hours after the last Mass, or the faint distant sound of Gregorian chant emanating from a chapel known to be empty and locked. These are not the grand horrors of prophecy or murder, but the subtle, persistent anomalies that suggest the past is not a foreign country, but a constant, whispering presence just behind the veil of the present. Finally, there is the mystery of the library's lost indexes. It is said that within the secret archives there exist catalogues of documents that are themselves classified, lists of texts that do not appear on any public inventory, references to scrolls and codices that were recorded as entering the Vatican's possession centuries ago, but for which there is now no official record. What became of these documents? Were they destroyed, moved to an even more secure location, or do they simply wait? Their titles known, but their contents a profound mystery for a scholar with the right level of access and curiosity to one day seek them out. This is perhaps the most tantalizing horror of all, the knowledge that we may not even know the true extent of what we do not know. So as you drift towards sleep, let these final whispers settle. The story of the Vatican's hidden horrors is not a finite list, but a living tapestry. Its threads are woven from faith and fear, from sanctity and sin. It is a reminder that the greatest mysteries are often those that linger just beyond the edge of certainty, in the soft focus between history and legend. The echoes will continue. The silence will always have more to say. Rest now, surrounded by the intriguing shadows of a past that is never truly past. We have ventured far beyond the initial 10 terrors, peeling back layers to find yet more mysteries nestled within the heart of the Vatican. It becomes clear that this is not a place where stories conclude, but rather where they branch, intertwine, and fade into a mist of perpetual enigma. The very stones seem to breathe with the accumulated weight of centuries, each holding a secret, each whispering a tale that may never be fully told. As your journey into sleep deepens, consider the ultimate mystery, the nature of the Vatican itself. It is a sovereign entity, a spiritual capital, a museum, a fortress, and a home. It exists simultaneously in the modern world of global diplomacy and in the timeless realm of faith and tradition. This duality is the source of its enduring power and its most profound secrets. The conflicts between the sacred and the profane, the ancient and the contemporary, the divine mission and the human institution. These are the tensions that generate the very energy from which these mysteries are born. There will always be another document waiting to be declassified, another archaeological discovery waiting to be made beneath the foundations, another interpretation of a prophecy waiting to be argued. The narrative of the Vatican is an endless unfolding, a story being written and rewritten with every passing conclave, every papal decree, and every silent prayer offered beneath its majestic dome. So, let the specific tales of poison, ghosts, and prophecies blend now into a single, soothing hum of history. There is no need to solve these mysteries. Their purpose, perhaps, is not to be solved, but to be contemplated, to remind us of the vast, complex, and ultimately unfathomable tapestry of human experience centered on this unique and eternal city-state. The whispers will continue, but for now, they can become a gentle backdrop to your rest. The Vatican and its secrets will remain, steadfast and enigmatic, as they have for 2,000 years. And with that comforting, awe-inspiring thought, we truly bring our exploration to a close. May the echoes of history lull you into a deep and peaceful sleep. The night is deep, and all is quiet. As the profound silence after our reflection deepens, a final, gentle whisper emerges not from the archives or the crypts, but from a place of soaring beauty, the Sistine Chapel Choir. This institution, dating back over 15 centuries, is the oldest active choir in the world. Its voices have raised hymns to heaven for generations of popes, its harmonies echoing through the very chamber where cardinals gather to elect a new pontiff. But even here, in this pure expression of faith, there is a whisper of the uncanny. The story is told by choristers past and present, usually in hushed tones after long rehearsals. It concerns a specific piece of music, a lost motet, composed by a Renaissance master whose name has faded from memory. The piece, known only as the Lament of the Scaffold, was said to be of such sublime and mournful beauty that it could move the hardest heart to tears. The legend states it was composed for the funeral of a beloved cardinal during the building of the new St. Peter's Basilica, but it was never officially performed. The composer, so the tale goes, had woven a secret into the Polyphenia musical cipher that contained a devastating truth about the financial and moral compromises being made to complete Michelangelo's Great Dome. After a single, private rehearsal, the piece was banned. The score was ordered destroyed. The composer vanished from historical records. Yet choristers swear that on certain evenings, when the chapel is empty and the last tourist has departed, a faint melody can be heard. It is not sung by any living voice, but seems to emanate from the very acoustics of the hall itself, a ghostly harmony. A fragment of the forbidden lament, drifting down from the choir loft. It is a sound of exquisite sadness, a beautiful secret forever trapped in the stone. A reminder that even the most glorious achievements can be built upon silenced truths and unspoken sorrows. This final whisper contains no terror of violence or prophecy of doom. Instead, it offers a melancholy grace note to our long exploration. It speaks of beauty suppressed, of art sacrificed to power, and of a truth that can only express itself as a ghostly echo in the dark. It is a fitting end to our journey, a silent, unseen music that lingers in the air long after the singers have departed, just as these mysteries linger in the mind long after the story is told. Now, let the silence return. Let the echoes fade. The history has been spoken. The whispers have been heard. It is time for rest. Sleep deeply and peacefully. The narrative is complete. Beyond the heard melodies and the seen splendors, there exists a final stratum of silence, guarded not by locks or Swiss guards, but by a presence known only in the oldest of tales. This is not a story of a person, but of an office so ancient its origins are blurred with legend. The Clavigero, the keeper of the keys. The Vatican, as a sovereign state, possesses countless doors. There are the great bronze doors that welcome the public, the private doors of the Apostolic Palace. And then there are the others, the doors that are not marked on any map, the ones that lead not to rooms, but to spaces between walls, to spiral staircases that descend into bedrock, to forgotten lodges overlooking hidden courtyards. The Clavigero is the keeper of the keys to these doors. The position is not an official one. It is not listed in the Annuario Pontificio. It is said to be passed down, by word and ritual alone, from one custodian to the next. Always a simple man, a janitor or a restorer, someone whose presence in the shadows is unremarkable. His duty is not to open these doors, but to ensure they remain closed. Once every year, on the night of the winter solstice, he walks the silent corridors, a heavy, iron ring of blackened keys in his hand. He does not unlock the doors, but places his hand upon each one, feeling the wood or the cold metal, listening. The legend says that behind these sealed thresholds are not physical treasures, but things that have been forgotten for a reason. A room where a schism was settled with a silent nod. A chapel where a prayer of terrible consequence was once uttered. A cell that holds the last breath of a condemned heretic. These are places where history became so concentrated, so potent, that it risked bleeding into the present. The Clavigero's vigil is to ensure the seals hold. He is the guardian of the Vatican's memory, not to preserve it, but to contain it. He listens for a sound from behind the door, a whisper, a scratch, a scythe that might suggest the past is stirring, seeking to be let out. It is a silent, lonely vigil, a burden carried by one unknowable soul for the sake of the entire institution. This is the ultimate, untold horror and comfort, that within the vast, bustling microstate, there is a silent watcher who tends not to the living, but to the sleeping past. It is a reminder that some doors are meant to remain closed, not to hide a truth, but to protect the present from the overwhelming weight of what has been. And with this final serene image of watchful guardianship, our journey truly, finally, reaches its end. The last key has been checked. The silence is complete. Rest now, in perfect peace. We have walked together through the long, shadowed galleries of time. We have listened to the echoes of footsteps that have fallen silent centuries ago, and to the whispers of prophecies that have yet to come to pass. We have seen the light of faith flicker against the darkness of human frailty, and we have marveled at the endurance of an institution that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires. From the grotesque to the sublime, from the historical to the spectral, we have explored the hidden heart of the Vatican. But every story, no matter how deep or winding, must eventually find its rest. The last door has been closed by the silent clavigero. The ghostly lament has faded from the choir loft. The archives have fallen silent, and the stars above the observatory continued their slow, indifferent turn. The mysteries we have unveiled are not puzzles to be solved, but rather facets of a truth too vast to be fully comprehended. That the pursuit of the divine is a human endeavor, and is therefore marked by all the grandeur and tragedy of which humanity is capable. There is a peace that comes after a long journey, a quiet satisfaction in having beheld wonders and weathered terrors. The Vatican, with all its secrets, now recedes into the distance, a city of light and shadow standing firm against the river of time. Its stories are safe, its mysteries will keep. And so, we arrive at the true end of our narrative. There are no more doors to open, no more whispers to decipher. The tale is told. Let the silence that remains be a gentle and comforting presence. Allow your mind to release the images of tombs and telescopes, of popes and poisons. Let them all dissolve back into the history from which they came. The only thing that remains is a deep and profound quiet, a soft darkness that invites you to release the waking world entirely. You have journeyed far, and now you are home. Let go of the story. Let go of the sound of this voice. There is nothing left to do but to sleep. Sleep deeply, sleep peacefully. The night holds you safe. All is well. As the final echoes of our journey fade into the comforting silence, a profound sense of peace settles over the eternal city. The moon rises over the great dome of St. Peter's, casting long shadows that dance like gentle guardians across the ancient stones. The last lights in the apostolic palace wink out one by one, and the Swiss guards stand their watch in respectful silence, their footsteps hushed against the marble floors. Within the Vatican's walls, history itself seems to breathe slowly, rhythmically, as if settling into a well-deserved rest. The secrets we've uncovered tonight, from the Borgia poisons to the Fatima prophecies, now return to their rightful place in the tapestry of time, each mystery finding its piece in the grand design of centuries. The very air grows still, as if the angels themselves are holding their breath to honor this moment of tranquility. Far below, in the necropolis, the bones of saints and sinners alike rest undisturbed. In the archives, the countless documents and scrolls containing both glorious truths and troubling secrets slumber on their shelves. In the observatory, the great telescope continues its silent watch over the heavens, but even the stars seem to blink more slowly tonight, as if joining in this universal pause. The weight of 2,000 years of history, which moments ago felt so heavy with intrigue and mystery, now seems to lift, transforming into a gentle blanket of stories that comforts rather than concerns. Every pope, every cardinal, every artist, every guard who has ever walked these halls has contributed to this eternal story, and now their collective presence forms a chorus of silent guardianship over the sleeping city. Let this deep, abiding peace wash over you now. Feel the centuries of prayer and contemplation that have soaked into these stones, creating an atmosphere of sacred calm. The mysteries we've explored are now safely tucked away, their energy dissipated into the night, leaving only serenity in their wake. As you drift into sleep, imagine yourself as part of this eternal rhythm. The rising and setting of the sun over the great obelisk in St. Peter's Square, the slow turning of the seasons, the gentle passage of time that puts all things into their proper perspective. The Vatican has seen empires rise and fall, has witnessed both great darkness and brilliant light, and through it all has maintained this steady, breathing presence. Now it is your turn to rest, cradled by this ancient peace. Let your breathing sink with the slow, measured heartbeat of history. Release the last remnants of the day, and surrender to the deep, healing silence that follows a story well told. The night embraces you, the city dreams, and all is exactly as it should be. Sleep now, deeply and completely. The journey is over, and you have arrived at peace. As the deep peace of the Vatican's slumber settles around you, allow your awareness to soften and expand. The very stones of this ancient place begin to breathe their own slow, rhythmic lullaby, a vibration felt more than heard. a primordial hum that predates even the earliest foundations of the first basilica. This is the whisper of the earth itself, of the Vatican hill upon which this city-state rests, a gentle pulse that has continued uninterrupted through all the human drama unfolding above. Imagine the soft, cool marble beneath your feet, not as a cold surface, but as a repository of countless footsteps, pilgrims and popes, artists and assassins, all their journeys absorbed into the polished stone. With each breath you take, you release the weight of these stories. The intrigue, the passion, the faith, and the fear all dissolve into the tranquil darkness, leaving only a pure, silent awareness. The great artworks, Michelangelo's frescoes, Bernini's sculptures soften their majestic forms, their divine energy becoming a diffuse, golden light that comforts rather than inspires awe. The boundaries between the past and the present, between the story and the listener, begin to gently blur. You are no longer separate from the history you have explored. You are cradled by it. The silence within these walls is not an empty void, but a profound presence, as deep and nourishing as the darkest earth. It holds you with the same timeless patience that it has held all secrets for 2,000 years. There is nothing more to uncover, nothing more to ponder. The mind, having journeyed so far, can now truly rest. The voice of the narrative fades, leaving you in the perfect, wordless quiet at the heart of all things. Your breathing becomes slow and deep, matching the slow exhalation of the sleeping city. Every muscle relaxes. Every thought gently drifts away like a feather on a still pond. You are safe. You are still. You are at peace. The eternal vigil of the Vatican continues, and you are invited to rest within its unwavering calm. Let go completely now. Surrender to the silence and the deep, healing darkness. Sleep. As the last echoes of our journey fade into the comforting silence, a new presence makes itself known, not from the pages of history, but from the space between moments. This is the guardian of the threshold, a silent sentinel who exists not in the Vatican's physical corridors, but in the liminal space where memory and dream converge. This guardian is not a ghost or an angel, but rather the accumulated spirit of all who have sought truth within those hallowed walls. It is the quiet keeper of the door between the stories we have told and the deep, restorative silence that follows. The guardian has watched over our entire journey, observing as we uncovered secrets and pondered mysteries. Now, as you prepare to cross the final threshold into undisturbed rest, the guardian offers a final, wordless blessing. It gathers up the lingering questions, the faint whispers of intrigue, and the last sparks of curiosity, and with a gesture as soft as a breath, it tucks them away into a sacred repository of peace. There is no need to carry these wonders into your sleep. They are safe here, preserved in the eternal quiet of this timeless place. Feel the presence of this benevolent watcher as a gentle pressure, like a soft blanket settling over you. It assures you that every mystery has its place, every horror has been comforted, and every question can now rest. The Vatican itself, with all its layers of light and shadow, is at peace. The frantic energy of historical drama has been soothed into a tranquil, steady hum. The guardian stands at the door to your dreams, ensuring that only serenity may pass. Now, allow the guardian to guide you across this final threshold. Step away from the world of stories and into the world of pure being. The journey is complete. The tales are told. All that remains is the deep, dark, silent peace that exists at the very core of the universe. Let go of the last threads of waking thought. Surrender to the quiet embrace of the void. You are safe. You are protected. You are deeply, profoundly loved by the silence itself. Sleep now. The guardian watches over you. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to hear. Only peace remains. Let it carry you away into the deepest, most restorative sleep you have ever known. As you cross the threshold guarded by the silent sentinel, you find yourself in a place that is both new and familiar, the Library of Dreams. This is not a library of books and scrolls, but of moments. Here, the stories we have shared are not written on parchment, but woven into tapestries of light and shadow that drift gently through the air like soft silk. The scent of old incense hangs in the air, and the only sound is the distant, harmonious hum of the universe at rest. In this sacred space, the mysteries of the Vatican are transformed. The tale of the Borgias becomes a dance of flickering crimson and gold. The Cadaver Synod resolves into a quiet, grey tapestry of forgiveness and peace. The prophecies of Malachi and Fatima are no longer ominous predictions, but rather gentle, swirling patterns of starlight. their meanings softened into abstract beauty. Each mystery, each horror, each moment of divine inspiration has been translated into a form that comforts rather than unsettles. This is where stories come to rest, to be stripped of their power to disturb, and instead become lullabies for the soul. There are no more questions here, no need for answers. The librarian of this dream space is silence itself, and it invites you to wander without purpose, to simply absorb the peaceful energy of stories that have been fully told and are now at peace. Feel the weight of history lift from your shoulders. The burden of curiosity dissolves. Your mind, which has been so active and engaged, can now become still and receptive, like a calm lake reflecting a sky full of soft, nighttime clouds. Allow yourself to drift deeper into this tranquil realm. The light grows softer, the shadows warmer. The very air seems to embrace you, supporting you, encouraging you to let go completely. The Library of Dreams is the antechamber to perfect rest, a place where the mind releases its final hold on the waking world. There is no past here, and no future, only the eternal, peaceful present. Sleep is calling you from beyond the library, a deep healing and utterly dreamless sleep. Trust in this call, surrender to it. Let the last vestiges of your awareness gently fade into the welcoming darkness. You are safe, you are cherished, you are home. Now, sleep.